Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Scott Warren, keynote speaker, consultant, author, and we'll talk about his mission to transform workplaces by putting people and purpose at the center of leadership. He calls on leaders to lead with purpose, integrity, and actual care for people. Welcome to the show,
Yeah,
Scott.
so good to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Appreciate this.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Scott. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk in this backdrop. We'll talk about how one can lead with care and drive real change,
Yeah.
authentic change. We'll talk all about this. But let's talk a bit about you, your journey, your background, Scott, so that 29 years career in sports and entertainment. So let's understand a bit about that so that
Sure.
audience knows who they are listening to.
Of course. Yeah. I spent 29 years in sports and entertainment running arenas and performing arts centers throughout the US and Canada. Uh, so, working with not only sports teams, hockey teams, those sort of things, but also some of the greatest musical artists in the world: Paul McCartney, Garth Brooks, and Elton John, and so many more. And and so working in that field really sort of that entire industry is about escape. It's about just going somewhere to escape for an hour and a half, 2 hours or more, just to get away from the daily grind of life, right? And so it's really really important to create those special moments, those opportunities to really help that patron, that customer that's coming through the door experience something pretty powerful, and that they walk away talking about not just the event itself, but talk about how they felt, what the service was like, the staff, those sort of things. And so, how do we create those sort of those opportunities for people? And so that led me into a number of things. And certainly, I released my latest book called "For the Love of God, Care About Your People," about the idea of really helping companies bridge the gap between what I saw oftentimes was this disconnect between their mission and their values and how the customers actually experience them and the employees experience them. So I wanted to do something really focused on that. And so that brings me to this point today.
Absolutely. So you talk about, business of caring. And companies will say, Scott, why will I care? I am into the business of making profit, and caring
Yeah.
will be a part of it, but not focused part of it. Help us understand. It's a profession. It's a professional line. Why should they care about people? Employees are hired because they know they have skills, they have things, they know it. They take their salaries, they go. Leaders also have this job to look at the top line, bottom line, every line that is going to profit themselves as well as the shareholders, whoever
Right.
it is.
Well, obviously, businesses are there to drive revenue and make a profit, and that's all fine. No one's saying you shouldn't do that. I highly encourage that. But how we do that, I think, is the important part. And I think what I see more often than not is you see companies bleeding people. They're leaving. There's attrition that's happening that because they either don't feel part of something bigger than themselves. They don't feel like what they joined, the company they joined. Maybe they were sold sort of what we call a bill of goods. It was sort of like, well, what you promised isn't actually how you actually function day to day. And we bring our real selves to work every single day, right? We're not just these robots that are just doing the job. We have uh, going through divorces or having miscarriages or attempted suicides. I've had to deal with all of those with people that report to me, and they bring their full selves to work. And so, how do we care about them in a way that we can inspire them to do the work that's going to lead to that profit, right? And the ultimate goal, the bottom line, but do it in a way with authentic care, not only about the employee, but also about the customer, the client. How is it that we are just so focused on this transaction as opposed to creating a long lasting relationship, which is going to drive even more profit long term, right? So it's I understand it can be very difficult for some people who are more analytical or more focused on numbers specifically, and talking about care and that sort of thing is uncomfortable. I completely understand that. But I think both need to happen. I think we need to care for the people in order to drive the profit long term, not just short term transactions.
Absolutely, Scott. We'll come to the how they can do it also through your book. But first, in terms of, a lot of these leaders, is it a problem with the leaders or is it a problem with the company culture? Leaders always do not make company culture, they come and go. So help us understand in that backdrop.
Well, I think what happens is that you have well-intentioned executive leadership that creates these mission and values, but what they fail to do is actually drive decisions through that filter. And so what happens is it's such a disconnect, and I see it all the time. Just to give an example, my experience with Walmart as an example, where there was a interview I saw not long ago with the CEO of Walmart who said that he was asked, how would you articulate what Walmart stands for? And he said, I think he said, a team dedicated to serving others. Well, that hasn't been my experience in any Walmart I've ever gone to. There may be pockets or people within the organization, but the general experience is not that. And it's not just Walmart. There are companies all over in the Fortune 500 that are, and even below, that are disconnected in what they say they value and actually their operation day to day. So their values become more aspirational, not operational. And so that's my heart, is to how do we bridge that gap? How do we actually say, because ultimately it's leadership, it's their job in terms of creating the culture, the intended culture, because the culture is going to be created and it may be complete opposite of what you actually think is actually functioning in the organization, right? So leadership, sort of executive leadership, tends to create those values and culture. And then it has to be lived and breathed throughout the organization in order to function properly. And oftentimes that's a complete disconnect.
Absolutely. Should we understand, if we look at the backdrop of the Great Resignation, quiet quitting, revenge quitting, and all these things, and so much of, toxic workplaces, do you think, or should we think that it's like, asking such leaders or companies to change is like beating a dead horse, that it's not going to change, that it's almost like a utopian idea, and the time of that idea is long gone? Now this is the bots which will come up and talk about, take places, rather than what do you think? Because your book shows that you are quite a optimistic person, hopeful person, whereas I see from whatever my experience of talking to a lot of leaders and my own experience is that it's like beating or hitting or kicking a dead horse.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that's the challenge that we have, is that it's so multi-leveled, because I think there are some leaders who want to change, but they don't have the tools. They don't know how. They don't know what's broken. They know that we're losing a lot of people. We're not really sure why that is. And sometimes they don't like to be faced with the reality of your culture is toxic, and you are the cause of that. It's sort of like we can do all these engagement surveys and get these results, and in the end, what are you doing with it? What are you changing to create that experience for the employee? And I think, yes, I think part of the challenge also is that generations now don't quite, they haven't experienced great service, right? There's still people that do it. I mean, Disney to a degree, even though they've changed a little bit. Nordstrom, Chick-fil-A, certainly. There are certain companies that are doing it well, and I think the reason they're doing it well is because they mandate behavior. I think that's one of the big challenges, where companies are afraid to mandate behavior. They say, "Oh, we value this. This is really important to us," and yet they do nothing except make it highly encouraged. And I think that's sort of where the disconnect becomes. If it's something that's really important to you, you have to make it so. For example, in Chick-fil-A here in the States, at the end of every transaction, every interaction with one of their employees, they say, my pleasure, all the time. Well, why do they do that? Well, if it was highly encouraged, some would do it and some wouldn't. but they all do it because it's mandated. And I think there's a fear of mandating that sort of behavior. But if these values are really important, I think that's the first question. Are these your values? Do you really believe this, or are they just marketing to attract talent? But if you actually believe this, let's actually put it into place. Let's actually have it live and breathe in the organization. Let's filter our decision making through those values so that nothing seems out of alignment, because we're going to lose people when what you say and what you do are completely different. And I see it every single day.
Absolutely. But that's the way they are being trained, you know, from sales to marketing to advertising to every aspect of things. You see everywhere. Outside, you are not telling the full truth. Inside, you are not telling the full truth. Not for telling the full truth to the stockholders, to everyone, to society. You know, green, white washing, whitewashing. So many washings you can know. You get to hear about. How do you expect that change of heart and care? Forget about even empathy. Is such a natural thing. Is gone out of a lot of hearts. And that question, you try to bring about care within such hearts. How will you do it? It's a very tough task, Scott.
Yes.
How have you? Let's get to the book. How have you dealt this issue into your book?
It seemingly it seems impossible, but it's not that complicated. Like when we think about it, it's really not that complicated. We just care. We care about the person I'm serving in front of me right now. They're the most important person in front of me right now. How do I treat this transaction? Like, and it's simple things, right? It's, again, I think it feels like it's overly complicated. But if you have someone in your store that says, you know, I almost didn't make this sale today because, you know, I just got back from Paris and I've been just going crazy and I just hadn't, you know, so I'm just here. And they're like, okay, that's amazing. Tell me about your trip. Right. As opposed to, okay, well, how can I serve you? What do you need? Let's do this transaction. It's like, no, what was your favorite part of the trip? Like, it's simple things. It's not complicated things, right? And in our days of working from home and our hybrid work culture, you know, you can be talking to a customer and hear a dog in the background and say, oh, I hear a dog. What kind of dog do you have? Right. Again, it's simple things, but to that dog owner, oh my God, you just asked about my dog. This is amazing. Like, I want to tell you all day long about my dog. Now, obviously, you have to steer the conversation to a close, and because you've got business and other customers, but it's simple things. Now, the challenge is with the leadership, because you're right. There's so many smoke and mirrors in terms of like being, you know, I can't tell you the truth. I can't tell you that you, employee, are really just a means to an end. I can't tell you that. I can't tell you that I don't really care about you, employee or customer even. I care about the shareholders. And so I got to do anything I can to I'll tell you whatever you want to hear because I got to satisfy the shareholders. For me personally, I would love that kind of honesty. I would respect you a lot more. But no one's going to say that. No one's going to say, you know, you're just a means to an end employee. But you don't have to say that. They are a means to an end in a sense that they are between the customer and the money coming in. But man, a happy employee, now that's powerful. That can make a happy client, a happy customer. That can make them come back long term to drive that bottom line. I think it's simple things to do. It's not that complicated. I think it is a change of heart. It is taking someone who is very much bottom line driven and saying, hey, let's talk about caring about the people too. It's like, oh, that's uncomfortable, but it would be uncomfortable for me, to be honest with you. I'm an empath. If you said, hey, Scott, let's focus on just nothing but the bottom line in analytics, I'd be like, ooh, that's not me. So how do we bridge the two? How do we work together to kind of, you know, bring in a little bit of this here and there? And quite frankly, you know, the blueprint is the company's stated values. It's already there. Whenever I have an issue with a company or whatever, I don't give them Scott's opinion. I just point to their own values. Like, this isn't what I'm saying. This is what you're saying. This is what you say you value. So let's walk through that. You know, I've been in situations where, you know, some of their values are do it now. Okay, well, I had a situation at a hotel where they had charged my credit card too much for the room by accident. And they were like, well, you're going to have to wait until the bank's open on whatever day. And I'm like, well, that's not do it now. That's like, what, do it now. right? It's sort of like this. There's a lot of these things that, or it says that they give their employees the ability to make decisions, and then the employee's like, yeah, I can't really do that. I'm sorry, that's above me. Oh, well, then your values, there's something wrong here. Right? So my goal, as crazy as it may be, is to help these companies bridge that gap between what you say you value and how you actually function day to day. How do we actually bring that together? And it may mean tweaking the values. It may mean the values aren't actually what you're going to say because you can't live up to that. So how do we take a look at the entire mission, values? Let's break that down. What does that look like? Is this really what you want to say? If it is, okay, how do we make decisions based on this? You know, when I've talked to companies that have their value of putting people first. Okay, well, are you doing that with the decisions you're making? Are you putting people first? Like, let's talk about that. And which people? Is it the shareholder people, or is it the customer people, or is it the employee? Like, so what are we talking about? And really kind of drilling down a little bit to try to get them more focused on what they value, and then let's put it into practice.
Absolutely, absolutely. How have you talk about, mandate behavior? It's almost like, you are forcing people to behave in a certain way. How do they create that culture that it comes naturally to everyone? Again, it looks like very hypocritical and all. And everybody gets it. Employees will get it. The leaders will get it. Again, it will be a hypocrite organization or culture. Is it a good thing to live there, or straightway, I am an employee, you are an employer, that's it, to no sweet words, just let's fix up the target or whatever we got to do it. And beyond that, there is no relationship. I can fire you, you can fire me, that's it. It becomes a simple sort of a, working. That's why bots are coming. With bots, you do not have any attachment. You don't have to fire them the way you have to fire employees. Right. You can just throw them out in the junk. Yes. So that, in that sense, I think that sort of a time has come. I mean, I understand your feelings about all these things, and I have the same feelings. But I think, it's people will have to will perhaps understand, very hard stances. You see, even in the case of United Health, I don't want to get down to the details of that.
Right.
Someone will protest it in a different manner.
Sure.
A lot of people, and in a sector like healthcare, in a sector like insurance,
Yes.
Everyone is almost feeling like a victim in so many cases. Do you think people will have to resort to different ways if people do not understand? I don't want that society ever reaches to that level. That will be anarchy.
No, I mean, I think you're right. I think that's the challenge, though. You talk about United Healthcare. Well, United Healthcare, the model is to deny coverage to drive revenue. Like, ultimately, yes, you're going to cover things because that's part of the job. But the way you make money is by denying coverage. And so that is already a model where caring about the customer or is not a thing. Like, I mean, we say it, but also, again, it comes back to this, just telling the truth. What is the truth? The truth is, yes, we make money by denying your claim. That's how we make profit. The problem becomes when there's such a disconnect because the profit is in the billions and people are sick and not having coverage. That's going to create that huge thing, right? So how do we actually bring it together where we're actually caring about people? Maybe we're not making as much money. Ooh, that's a tough one, right? We don't want to hear that. But maybe that's true. Maybe we make less money and care about the people more than we currently do. And maybe that's a step in not causing that sort of crazy divide that causes ridiculous results, because no one wants that. But I think we mandate in a workplace, we mandate things all the time. We do, right? We've got, I want this report on my desk by Friday and it needs to be there by Friday, or there's a corrective action, or there's a write-up, or there's a consequence to that. We mandate things in the workplace all the time, except our values. We don't want to mandate our values for some reason. And I've heard, we're too big of a company. We can't just, turn on a dime. And no, we turn on dimes all the time. We always turn on dimes all the time. We're making changes like on the fly. It happens constantly, except for things like values, where we say, oh, we can't, that's a tough one. We can't mandate that. And I've heard from companies where they've said to me, we can't mandate that because we don't know what that looks like. We don't know what it means to mandate. We say that we value diversity, right, and or inclusion or whatever we want to call it. We value that. Okay, but if I take a look at your organization, there's nothing mandated about that. No one has to talk about it in a meeting. No one has to create a diversity spotlight in this town hall. But there's nothing that has to actually happen as a result of what you say you value. That makes no sense. If it's a value, do something about it. Mandate the behavior, because that's what ultimately that's what you want to see carried out throughout the organization. That's what you want to see the culture embrace and become. And yet we just throw our hands up and say, yeah, I don't know. We don't really know what to do with that. Not everyone they'll say not everyone can, knows what to do about diversity. So we can't really mandate it. Oh, well, we mandate a lot of things. Why don't you give them the tools to help them? How would they bring that up in their team huddles? How would that happen? Like, give them the tools to do it so that it can be mandated, instead of saying, yeah, not everyone knows what to do. I've heard it all the time. And so it can be done. Ultimately, it comes down to, do you want it done? Do you care about the people? Do you care about the people? Or do you care about the money only? And the answer is, whatever it is. But then be honest about it. And I think that's where, they don't want to do that, obviously. So there's a lot of challenges right now, and I get it. It seems like what I propose is sort of like pie in the sky, sort of like this love fest, and it's not even that. Because when I'm talking about care, I'm talking about caring for your employee enough to have difficult conversations, not just everything's great. How's your dog? How is everything going in your life? You celebrate a graduation or whatever. That's awesome. No, it's also, I see this part of you, and that's not healthy for you or the company. We can't have, let's have that conversation. And because you care about the dog, and because you care about the other things and the kids and the family and all that, the harder conversations are easier to have, and they're received better by the employee. And so there's a lot of levels to it. Ultimately, we just have to decide, do we care or not?
Absolutely. So do you think that the time has come? How do you see it? That such companies, because of the change in people's understanding, it looks like everything is very exposed. You see the way we are conversing openly about it. We know that everything else is optics. So it has to be real change on the ground. And that companies, customers, consumers, everyone knows the fact, and consumers will force companies to change or to go extinct. Will that only bring the change? Nobody else. You brought God into the book, for the love of God, or maybe God will start attending meetings and say, if you don't implement it, then I know where to send you right away. How does it look like? Will the companies have a change of heart by themselves, or God will have to force it, or time will have to force it in any manner, and the time has come?
I don't think God will ever force it. I think God will work in us to bring that change about. But I do believe that that the time is now. I mean, and it's the reason I say it's now is because the customer experience is so broken almost everywhere you go that it doesn't take much to create that. Wow, that's literally. It was a Chick-fil-A. One day, my family and I were at Chick-fil-A, and our first time ever being in that establishment ever, and we stood there waiting for our food, and the young woman said, oh, if you'd like to find a seat, we'll be happy to bring the food out to you. I was like, what? Like, usually I'm just sitting up there waiting at the counter, waiting for them to either call my name or number or whatever. And so, like, what do you mean you're going to bring it out to me? Okay. So I go, our family sits at the table, and sure enough, not long after, she comes out with the food, puts it on the table. Can I get you any condiments? She says. What are you talking? Like, that's unusual, right? And again, that's so simple. And yet it was something that I remember, and it was years ago. And so I even wrote about it in the book. It's that it doesn't take much to create that wow experience. And the challenge we're having right now that I see, and again, don't judge me on my fast food, but I went to a Wendy's restaurant, and it was AI that was at the menu board. It was AI speaking to me. It wasn't a person. And it was amazing. I heard every word clearly. They understood me. The order was right. It was pleasant. Went on to the next window to get the food. What? Like, we can do that as people. It doesn't take much. But I think we have to expose that it's possible. You usually emulate what you've experienced. And if you've experienced terrible customer service, you don't know any better. So we have to start creating small moments of movement where we are having these companies, little things. We're not talking about complete overhauls entirely. It's like, let's take this one value. What can we do about this one value that actually brings it to life, so that people understand that we actually do live this way? We do believe in this. We do mandate this behavior. And I think there are so many opportunities, but I think, as it relates to God, that's a completely a work within us that's going to be able to pour out into other people to make them feel, heard and seen and valued. I think that's really what we all want. And you talk about that CEO, can he just say, just do your job? That's your job, just do it. Sure. But I'm sure that CEO also wants to be cared for by the board, and not, have the board of directors say, just do the job, just do it. He's going to want a relationship as well. We all want that. We all long for that. We all want that connection. And so, yes, we know we have a business to run. How do we run the business and care for people at the same time?
Absolutely. There's much to learn from you about all these things. And I'm sure a lot of leaders need to understand and learn from a book like yours. For the love of God, care about your people. So for all those people, all those leaders who would like to connect with you, what is the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, they can check me out on LinkedIn. They can reach out to me at my company FrogCape, which is scott@frogcape.com, FROGCAPE. And I'd love to connect and see if we can help bring those values to life and actually have them living and breathing and functioning within your organization, making them operational, not aspirational.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you so much.